Yo, what is going on YouTube? Alright, so today we're going to do something a little bit different, but it kind of goes along with the theme of what my videos have been about here recently. Um, and it's about parents, basically, is, as you can see by the screen, narcissistic parents. And me personally, I've dealt with several narcissistic people. And this is why I want to bring this up, is because people don't understand the severity of kids who grow up with narcissistic parents. And it's a problem for me because I've experienced that. So let's dive in. Let's figure out what's going on. Let's dissect this, and we'll go through it like we always do.
Today I want to talk to you about the narcissistic parent. This is the second installment in the narcissistic family series that I have. A parent's job is to love their child and prepare them for life as an adult. Unfortunately, in many cases involving a narcissistic parent, it is the parent who behaves childishly and immaturely. Narcissists are disastrous as parents. They are not designed to be caretakers, and in many instances, they're just simply not capable of it. In order to be a good parent, the child's needs must come first. Narcissists are unable to make this sacrifice. They simply cannot, and more importantly, will not do it. The child...
See, and that in itself is a problem. When you're talking about... Because, as I said, this relates to the theme of this channel. And it's about how, not all mothers are good mothers and stuff like that. And the reason I wanted to talk about this today is because this seems to be the underlying factor of why these mothers are not good mothers. Is because they're not able to understand that a child's need comes before theirs, because they just can't do it. They cannot. They're not capable. As she said, like, if you've never heard of Little Shaman, just go follow her channel. She's a great person when it comes to really breaking down narcissistic people on a very scientific and psychological standpoint. She's very, very good at it. She's one of my favorite people that ever talk about this, which is why I'm using her channel or her video for this video. But like she said, like, narcissistic parents are not capable of putting a child before themselves. And as a good parent, that's what you have to do. But they can't understand what a child actually needs, because they can't comprehend anything outside of what benefits them. And you're going to understand that, like I said, Little Shaman really breaks this down. So let's keep going, and she'll break it down a little better than what I just did. But again, narcissistic parents are not capable of putting their kids first, and that in itself is a problem. If you cannot put your kid before yourself, you don't deserve that kid.
Needs and feelings are ignored in favor of the parents' needs and feelings. Narcissistic parents will buy things for themselves while their children go hungry. They will take more than their share of things while their children go without. They will allow houses to go into foreclosure or rent not to be paid, rendering their children homeless out of spite or simple irresponsibility. For most parents, their children are the first people they think of when considering a course of action. Narcissistic parents often must be reminded that the children will be affected as well. It's like it never even crosses their minds, and honestly, it probably doesn't.
You see that's what I mean. Like, is that in itself not a problem? If you as a parent cannot say, how is this going to affect my kid? If I buy this for myself, and like, she just literally laid it out there in plain sight. Like, they'll buy things for themselves while letting their kids go without. They'll buy whatever it is they want and not pay rent. And because they're irresponsible like that. And that's the problem with narcissistic parents, is they're irresponsible. They're not responsible enough to consider how their actions affect the kid. And that in itself is a problem. And if you watch any of my other videos, that's a pretty prime example of what was covered in those videos. Those women were only concerned about what they wanted. And I mean, feel free to go back and look at them. I mean, but those women were just concerned about what they wanted. They were not concerned about how it affected the kids. Like, I covered a story where a few women went to the bar. One went to the bar with the kid while drunk, got arrested, blah, 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 blah. The other one left her kids at home alone to go to the bar. You know what I mean? So they're only thinking about what they want. And they're not even considering how what they're doing is affecting the kids. And that in itself is a problem. And if you can't see that, and this is why I have a big, big, big problem with CPS, is because CPS refuses to acknowledge these types of situations. And when they refuse to acknowledge these situations, it's the kids who are paying the ultimate price. And that's why I keep bringing this up. Is because we have got to do a better job at protecting these kids. We are paying, us taxpayers are paying social workers to protect our kids, and they're not doing it. And I've even brought this topic up to CPS workers, and they acted like they didn't know what the hell I was talking about. And if you are a social worker and you cannot understand how narcissistic parents work or how they operate or how they think, you're in the wrong field. Because most of the time, when CPS is involved, it is likely going to be against one or more narcissistic parents.
Nothing matters to a narcissist except what they want and how things affect them. It's how they're wired. That's just how they're wired. Not only are the children's physical or immediate needs ignored, perhaps more importantly in some ways, their emotional needs are neglected as well. They are ignored, they are shamed, they are mocked, they are humiliated, lied about, made to seem crazy, or made out to be troublemakers. They are forced to carry the responsibility of the parents' emotions.
And, like, that just literally goes back to what I just said. You tell me how that's fair to a kid. Their feelings are ignored, they're lied about, they're shamed. When they tell a parent, "Oh, you're making me feel this way," they're literally shamed for it. And you tell me how that's fair to a kid. You shame a kid because you make it. All right, let's put this into perspective. You make a kid feel bad. A kid comes to you and tells you what you said hurt their feelings. What you said made them feel bad. If you don't feel any empathy for that kid, there's something wrong with you. And explain to me how it's right to make a kid feel guilty because you made them feel like shit.
Children of narcissistic parents are often only noticed or given attention when they do something that affects the narcissistic parent or when they can be used in some way. Narcissists are users, that's all they know. Their children are absolutely no exception to that. Narcissists will say terrible, unbelievable things to a child or drag the child into arguments with the other parent or family members without thinking twice. They do not care at all how much damage this could be doing to the child.
Yeah, I mean, that, excuse me, that in itself is a problem, is that they would drag a child into an argument with the other parent with no regards whatsoever as to how it affects the kid. And I've seen this happen. I've seen this firsthand. And this is why I have a problem with it, because I've seen how it affects the kid. And for a narcissistic parent to not see that or not even care is a problem in itself. And this is again why I say CPS really needs to educate themselves on narcissistic parents. Because, as I said, the majority of the time when CPS is involved, it is against a narcissistic, one or more narcissistic parents. So you really need to understand what this means and how it affects the kid. Because, as I said before, I brought it up it was disregarded, and my kid's suffering greatly for it. That's why I'm bringing it up. That's why I do what I do. I've seen the effects it has on him, and I'm honestly sick and tired of it. To be honest with you, like, I don't know what else to do. Like, I reached out to everybody I could reach out to, and nobody's doing anything about it. So I don't know what else to do. So the only thing I could do is to lay this out there in front of the public and expose everybody for the bullshit that's going on in my kid's life, because he's greatly affected by it, and nobody's doing anything about it. And I really don't know what else I can do. Like, I cannot sit back and watch my kids suffer. I can't do it. And if nobody in this town is going to listen, what else am I going to do but expose the reality of our situation? This is the reality of our situation. My kid is brought into a whole lot of bad situations that nobody gives a damn about. And the only person that is speaking up is me. And nobody's listening. So what else am I going to do? I am not going to stop fighting for my kid. Period. If anybody, the last time I checked, I've got 611 subscribers. Most of y'all have been here since the very first video I posted. And that was the car seat video. So, most of y'all are well aware of what me and my kid are going through. Alright? And so this is more or less a recap of what we've been through from then till now. Okay? And my kid, my son, is greatly affected by all of this. And nobody's doing anything about it. 4 investigations, nobody's done anything about it. 2 lawyers, nobody's done anything about it. My kid is still suffering. This is why I make these videos, because I'm sick and tired of watching my kids suffer. I'm sick and tired of watching other kids suffer, and this is not right. We have got to do better. And I'm going to keep fighting for this, because what else have I got? What other platform do I have? If 2 lawyers ain't going to do their job, if 4 CPS workers ain't going to do their job, if a judge is not going to do his job, what other platform do I have? Explain that to me. What other platform do I have to get recognition or what's the word I'm looking for? Protection for my kid. What else do I have? Nobody around here is doing anything. My kid's suffering, and I have no choice but to sit back and watch. My job as his parent is to protect him, and I can't do it because the people who are in the position to do so aren't doing anything about it. So what else? What other options do I have other to expose these types of people? Because I've laid it out there in plain form for everybody, and they don't want to listen. And if you watch this video, and I hope to God the 2 lawyers I hired, I hope to God the lawyer she hired, and I hope to God the judge that presided over the case is watching this video right now, because I want you to see and understand what my son is going through. And this is why I have the problem that I have with our system, because I have watched my son suffer for 4 years, and I'm sick and tired of it. It's got to stop. I'm going to keep fighting for this until it does. I'm sorry. I don't mean to go into a rant. That was my rant. My bad. Whatever. Now y'all understand why I do these videos. It's because it hits home with me. It hits home with my son. I watch my son go through this stuff, and I'm sick and tired of it.
Simply using the child to hurt someone else. The child is literally nothing more than a pawn, like a weapon. an inanimate object with no feelings that's simply there for them to use. The fact that they are confusing or hurting or upsetting the child not only doesn't matter, it doesn't even register. The sad, terrible thing about that is that the narcissist will often accuse others of doing that exact thing, which proves that they do understand that children can be damaged by such behavior. They just don't care.
See what I mean? Is basically with what I've been through, like I said, like I've really dove deep into this whole narcissism spectrum. I really dove deep into that. Alright. And what that is what she just explained was projection. So they'll do things that hurt the kid. They'll bring kids into situations to weaponize the kid, basically, to hurt the other parent, and with no thought whatsoever as to how it actually affects the kid. But then they will blame you for affecting the kid because you're the problem. You see what I mean? So basically what they're doing is they're taking their bad actions and they're portraying it onto you or projecting it onto you. That's basically what they're doing. And that's basically what she just explained. Is all the bad stuff she's doing or whoever's doing, the narcissistic parent, whatever bad stuff the narcissistic parent is doing, they're going to portray it onto you. They're going to say, oh no, you're making the kid feel this way. You're the one that's affecting this. You're the one doing this. You're the one doing that. When in reality, they're the ones that's actually doing it. So they understand that the situation hurts the kid, but they're blaming you for it, rather than taking accountability for what they're doing. That's basically, in a nutshell, what that means. Is they're trying to take accountability away from themselves and trying to take their bad behavior and trying to push it onto you. That's literally what they're doing.
The child does not matter. He or she is seen as an object, either a weapon or a tool or a trophy. The child is, in very real terms, nothing more than a means to an end. The child is used to hurt others or gain sympathy or get somebody to do something, in the case where we will see women get pregnant with babies so that they can get something. That's a narcissistic behavior.
Key point right there. Like I said in the very beginning of this video, is the most of the time when the CPS is involved, it's against a narcissistic parent. And in this case, she clearly mentions that women will get pregnant in order to use the kids for one means or another. That's a prime example. That's literally proof of what I said in the beginning of this video. They're using the kid as a tool or a weapon to get what they want. Nothing more. The kid is just a means to get what they want.
And they're used to make the narcissistic parent look good. Little Johnny's accomplishments aren't important to his narcissistic parent because they mean anything to or about little Johnny. Little Johnny's accomplishments are important to the narcissistic parent because they make the narcissistic parent look good. Little Johnny's failures aren't important because they mean little Johnny's having trouble and needs help. They're important because they're making the narcissistic parent look bad. Little Johnny himself does not matter at all. He's simply an accessory for the narcissist's ego.
You see that? That in itself, you tell me that's not a problem. And again, CPS workers cannot recognize this stuff. And this is what irritates the hell out of me. CPS workers cannot recognize this stuff. Is the kids' accomplishments only matter because it makes the narcissistic parent look good. Then the kids, disadvantages or lack of, or whatever the case, whatever they're lacking is making the narcissistic parent look bad. So, however that affects the narcissistic parent is how the narcissistic parent is going to look at the kid. So if the kid is doing things that are constantly making them look good, then the kid is going to be the golden child. If the kid is constantly doing things that make them look bad, then they're going to be the problem child. You see how that works? There's no in between here. There's no working it out. There's no what can I do to fix this. There's none of that. There's what is he doing that affects how it makes me look. That's all it comes down to, is what he's doing is making me look good or it's making me look bad. That's it. And depending on whether it makes them look good or whether it makes them look bad depends on how they look at that child. And that, again, in itself is a problem. And as if you, as a CPS worker, are not able to identify that, you are in the wrong field. Me, I'm not a CPS worker, but I guarantee you I could walk into a house and I could point that out like a snap of a finger. Like, you ain't going to tell me I can't point out a narcissistic parent. You ain't going to tell me that I can't point out a parent who is just... Because there's a difference. A parent... When a parent has a kid who's making them look good... let me rephrase that. When a narcissistic parent has a child that's making them look good, they're only going to talk about all the good things they do. When a narcissistic parent has a child who makes them look bad, they're only going to talk about the bad things they do. There's never going to be any in between. And again, this is why CPS workers need to be better educated. And I'm going to keep talking about this until they're better educated. Because, as I said earlier in this video, the kids are the ones who are affected the most. Because you are unable to recognize the problem. And in most cases, and I've brought it up before in other videos, and I've even said it in other videos, I'm going to keep bringing it up. AJ Friend was a very much in a narcissistic family. And the CPS workers were unable to recognize that. And it took his death before they finally realized there was a problem. And that in itself is a problem. It should not take a kid being killed by their own parent for CPS to say, okay, maybe we fucked up. Excuse my language, YouTube, sorry, but that's just my real opinion. It should not take a kid to die for CPS to say, maybe we should have dug in deeper.
It's just one more person the narcissist can use. Another thing is that narcissistic parents are often extremely abusive.
Two things right there. Just real quick. I'm sorry. If you don't like interruption, I'm sorry. This might not be the channel for you, but this is what I do. I comment. I watch videos. I comment on them. This is what I do. So if you don't like interruptions, probably not the channel for you. But, number one, she said, a kid is just someone else for her to use. And I'm going to say her. Because most narcissistic parents are mothers. And I even mentioned earlier in the video, I'm going to do another follow-up video to this. That's going to talk about a couple of narcissistic mothers who did horrific things to their kids. Which is why I said her. It's because most narcissistic parents are mothers. And this is why I have the problem that I have with CPS. This is why I have the problem with our justice system thinking that mothers are best for the kids. Because y'all, like, they really need to understand how deep this really goes.
They say horrific things to their children. They may physically or sexually abuse their children. They may lie and do all kinds of terrible things. When you see others as objects, their feelings don't matter to you. You don't care if you hurt them. You don't even feel that they have feelings. You wouldn't worry about hurting a lamp's feelings if you said it was ugly. But doesn't have any feelings. It's like the same type of thing. All that matters is what you need that lamp for. This is the same way that narcissists view other people. All that matters is what they need them for. A really tragic side effect, though, of narcissistic families is that sometimes both of the parents become narcissistic due to the influence of one narcissist. Then the child is surrounded by abuse on all sides. And also, many times, even if the other parent is not abusive themselves, they don't do anything to stop the narcissist from being abusive. They let the narcissist abuse the children and destroy the peace in the home in general. Narcissists also parade their children around, talking about how much they love them and what wonderful parents they think they are. We often see this on social media, actually, but people who know the narcissist personally know that their actions don't match up to their words at all. They're simply projecting an image of what they want other people to believe. When the narcissist...
And see, that in itself is a big problem. Alright, so they're portraying it like when it comes to social media, and people really need to understand this. When it comes to social media, anybody can be anything they want to be. They could be anything they say they are. Alright, the people that know them know that that's not how they really are. And that's prime example is a narcissistic parent may post their child, oh, I'm a great parent, look at what I do for my kid, blah, 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 blah. But the people that really know them are like, yeah, I've seen how you really are, and you're not that good. And that in itself is a problem, and this is why I say CPS needs to have a better understanding of this, is because whatever they're portraying is not what they really are. It's just an act. It's a facade. They want everybody to believe that they're the perfect parent, when in reality, they're the worst parent that you could have. But CPS is too naive or too stupid to understand or believe that. And that in itself is a problem because, as I said, we as taxpayers are paying them to protect our kids. And if you are not smart enough, or what's the other word? If you're not smart enough or conscious enough to understand that, then you are not in the position to tell me what is best for my kid. Bottom line. If you cannot understand how these type of people work, you are not in the position to tell me what is best for my kid. That goes for the judges, that goes for the lawyers, and anybody else involved that is telling me what's best for my kid. If you cannot point this out, if you cannot tell me that this is a problem, you are not in any position to tell me what is best for my kid, when it is my job to protect my kid. That's why I'm so passionate about this. It's because I watch so many people just bypass all of this information and act like it was nothing. Meanwhile, I have to sit back and I have to watch my kids suffer because many people that have been involved refuse to acknowledge this, which I have brought up. But they say, oh, you can't say that. The fuck I can't. Because I know what I'm dealing with. I know what my son's dealing with. Don't tell me what my son is dealing with. I've seen this. And any parent who has been in this type of situation has got to feel the same type of frustration. And if you do, please feel free to leave in the comments your story. I would be happy to talk to you about it. See if we can't figure out some type of game plan as to how we both can help each other out, or whatever the case may be. But let me tell you, anybody going through this situation, you're not alone, because I'm going through this situation right now.
This feels like being a good parent, or when they need to seem like one, then the children matter. The rest of the time, they don't matter at all. And sometimes they can get in the way of the narcissist plan.
And I'm actually going to, just real quick, two things right there. Number one, a kid only matters when they need the kid to make the narcissist look narcissists look good. The other part is when the child gets in the way, and I'm actually going to touch on that in the next video that I'm going to do, because I heard a few stories that she mentioned about some pretty horrific stories, which kind of coincide with what I've been dealing with on this channel. But it'll help put things into perspective as to why this is such a big problem. So keep a lookout for that. That's going to be coming up soon. But let's continue.
This often has tragic consequences, actually. Narcissists believe they own the people in their lives, and when you own something, you can get rid of it if you don't want it or you don't need it anymore. This results in children being abandoned or even killed when the narcissist no longer wants them or when they become too much trouble.
Keep that one in mind. When a kid is no longer has use or value, they can be abandoned or killed. Keep that in mind because that's going to come up in the next video. But that's why I said what I said just a second ago. The next video I talk about, she actually covers, and like I said, follow Little Shaman. I guarantee you, if you want to learn about narcissists or narcissistic parents or anything related to narcissism, follow Little Shaman. She's the best one I've ever watched, but there's a couple other stories that she mentioned in another video that I'm going to touch on in my next video, which is why I say what she said is going to coincide with that, is because when a narcissist no longer has need for the kid is expendable. They will abandon the kid or kill the kid. In CPS, lawyers and judges are not able to recognize that problem. They're in the wrong field. If they can't understand what a narcissist looks like, what a narcissist sounds like, what they say, how they act, their mental capacity, or what they're capable of doing to their own kids, if they're not able to understand any of that, they're in the wrong field. Period.
Some of you might remember Diane Downs, who shot her children in cold blood in the 80s and blamed it on some bushy-haired stranger in the road. She did that because she was dating a man who didn't want anything to do with a woman who had children. He was married and probably just used the children as an excuse, but she shot them because she felt that they were in the way, and if they were not there, that he would come and be with her.
I actually stand corrected. This is actually the same video. Like, I thought that, honestly, when she brought these things up, I thought it was in a different video. I really did. So, you're hearing it point blank and simple. This lady wanted this man who didn't want any kids, so she killed her own kids because she thought that's what it would take to be with this man. So, we're actually putting all this together in one. I honestly thought this was going to come up in a separate video, but apparently it's coming up in the same one. Because if I'm correct, she's about to bring up a couple more examples. But that's example number one. The lady she mentioned killed her kids because the guy that she was interested in did not want kids. And she felt like the kids were getting in the way of that. So she killed her own kids to be with that man. And that's a prime example of how narcissistic parents work. Is they don't understand the effects that it has on the kids. They only understand what they want and what they need to do to get it.
Diane was diagnosed with histrionic personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, and antisocial personality disorder. Based on her hysteria about abandonment, she also obviously had borderline features too. Her children were often neglected and abused, and that is very well documented. Before the crime ever happened, neighbors were constantly calling CPS. She did not take care of them. She often left them home alone, even when they were really little. And her oldest daughter, who was 8 at the time, reported having to do a lot of the chores and taking care of the other children by herself because Diane just couldn't be bothered.
And you see why I say this is a problem with CPS? Is CPS is contacted by neighbors. This woman was reported of neglecting her kids, leaving them home alone, and all this other stuff. CPS was involved before the crime ever happened. And CPS did nothing about it. And what happened? All of her kids died because CPS did not do their job. And you wonder why I have such a big problem with CPS. It's because we're paying them to protect our kids and they're not doing it because they refuse to acknowledge these types of situations. And that is what's going to cause more kids to die. Period.
Some of you might remember Susan Smith, which was an eerily similar case. It was very, very similar. She pushed her car into a body of water with her 2 toddlers in it for the same reason Diane Downs shot her children. She was dating a man who did not want to deal with children, and she blamed it on some guy that stole her car. Based on Susan's crime and her history of sexual abuse and her repeated suicide attempts and blatant lies and hysterical reactions that were totally fake, she is very obviously a narcissist. Dr. Deborah Green.
And honestly, I actually heard about that story on the news way before I ever heard of Little Shaman. Like, I'm sure everybody's heard of that story about the woman who pushed her van into the river, or the lake or river, whatever it was, and drowned her kids, and made it sound like it was like some kind of carjacking or whatever. But this is a prime example of what I'm talking about. A prime example of what I'm talking about. Like, you want to tell me that mothers are good mothers, that mothers are what's best for a child. 2 women killed all of their kids for a man that didn't want the kids. And they felt like the kids would get in the way of the man that they wanted. So they killed him. One woman shot all of her kids. The other woman drowned her kids. And you tell me how women are a better fit for a kid. Explain that one to me. Make that one make sense. Put it in the comments. Make that one make sense. How just those 2 stories alone. One woman shot all of her kids because a man didn't want the kids and she felt like the kids were getting away. Another woman drowned the kids and blamed it on a carjacking because she was interested in a man who didn't want the kids. So, explain to me how lawyers and judges and CPS can still convince you that a mother is best for the kids when 2 of these women killed all of their kids for a man. Make that one make sense. Please leave in the comment to make that one make sense.
Not only poisoned her husband and nearly killed him, she also set fire to her house and killed 2 of her children in revenge against her husband.
Hold on, I want to rewind that one right there because I didn't actually hear the name of the woman she just mentioned there.
Very obviously a narcissist. Dr. Deborah Green not only poisoned...
Dr. Deborah Green, okay. Alright, not only poisoned her husband, but let's continue. Dr. Deborah Green. So this is a 3rd woman who also killed her kids.
Her husband and nearly killed him. She also set fire to her house and killed 2 of her children in revenge against her husband. Dr. Green...
In revenge against her husband. So now we've got 3 women who have killed all their kids for a man or for revenge against a man. And you're still going to tell me that a mother is best for a child? If you still believe that, and I brought him up even in this video, the AJ Friend case, where that kid was maliciously abused for years. And then you add on to these other 3 cases that she mentioned, Little Shaman mentioned, where all of these women killed at least one or all of their kids. And you're going to sit here and tell me that a woman is best for the child? The mother is best for the child?
was diagnosed with borderline narcissistic and antisocial personality disorders. Take, for example, the case of Pat Taylor Allenson. She not only orchestrated the murder of her in-laws by lying and provoking her husband against his own parents and playing them against each other with reporting crimes that never happened and making threatening phone calls and all kind of crazy stuff. She also drove her brother to suicide with her continuous attacks and cruelty. Anyone who's ever dealt with a narcissist knows exactly what that's about. She also tried to get her husband to kill himself while he was in prison, saying that they would only be together after they were dead because he was never going to get out. After her husband was in prison for killing both of his parents in a situation that she set up, she then insinuated herself into his grandparents' lives and poisoned both of them. When she was released from prison for that, she worked as a sitter for the elderly, eventually working with a rich couple and poisoned both of them as well. She did all that for money. Her children took a backseat to her needs, always. This was somebody's mother. The person who did all those terrible things, this was somebody's mother.
Take that, so that's the fourth example she gave. This was somebody's mother who set up her husband to kill his own parents. And he was serving a life sentence. And she even tried to talk him into committing suicide. I had to stop myself there. I'm not sure I could say it on YouTube. But she even... I'm going to try to use the politically correct terms. But she even tried to convince her husband to self-cancel himself after taking care of both of his parents. And then she worked in a nursing home where she took care of other people, took out other people. And this was, like Little Shaman said, this was somebody's mother. So tell me how a mother is best for a child when they're capable of these type of horrific things.